So very good afternoon to all. Welcome to our series Nation State Dialogue. राष्ट्र राज्य संवाद श्रृंखला में आपका स्वागत है. I'm Umesh Kumar Gupta, Assistant Professor of Chinese and PhD Scholar, Amity University, Rajasthan, moderator for today's discussion. Today it's our pleasure to have an eminent strategic analyst, retired Major General Binoj Basnyat of the Nepalese Army with us. He is Independent Strategic Analyst on South Asian Affairs. General Binoj is a graduate of various national and international institutes such as Royal Military Academy, UK, US Army Command and General Staff College, US, Asia Pacific Center of Security Studies, US Army Command and General Staff College, US Asia Pacific Center of Security Studies, US Postgraduate Naval College, National General Officer Commanding of Eastern Command of Nepalese Army and led various command positions. General Binoj also headed prestigious military training institutions of Nepalese Army, Nepalese Military Academy, Staff College, and Higher Command and Management course. So very warm welcome to you, sir, in this Nation State Dialogue series. Without taking much of time, let's start today's discussion with the first question. It is said that major security and strategic challenges in South Asia can be attributed to fragile democratic structure, weak and unstable governments, growing radicalization, uncertainty in Afghanistan, and increasing Chinese influence in South Asian region. How do you see these security and geostrategic challenges in South Asia? Over to you, sir.
Thank you, and namaste from Kathmandu. Thank you, Nation State Dialogue. Gita-ji, thank you so much, and thank you for the kind introduction. Okay, for the first questions, let me take these questions in three areas which are frequently under discussion. So one is the US growing influence in the Indo-Pacific region. And the second is the Chinese growing influence in South Asia. And the third is like questions arising on the traditional security architectures of South Asia. Now, let me highlight on 6 geostrategic global environments. First is the world geopolitics is reshaping the Indo-Pacific region like Europe after World War II. And all the trends of the flashpoints now seems to be happening around China's periphery. Now, the aim is to slow down China's economic growth and the contests of democracy versus communism. Second, China's political ambitions and rise in making China more dependent and connected with its periphery nations, and South Asia is no exception. Third is India has become more important now, as well as for India, the immediate neighbors in South Asia is even more imperative than before. Four, the world and the governments, big or small, powerful or weak, is being criticized about the handling of COVID-19. The global increase in COVID-19 is stressing budgets and reordering national and international security priorities. Fifth is the global body, the United Nations, is also being questioned and maybe seeking for reforms. And the last is the change in the US administration and the impression. So of the 5 United States strategic policy documents, 5 feeders are visible for our region, for South Asia. So to highlight a few, the United States is strengthening security arrangements through partnership and alliance with nearly all the nations of South China's borders. So Quad arrangements is aiming to establish, and I call it the arc of democracy, envisioned to include Central Asia, Mongolia, the Korean Peninsula, and other strategic alliances and measures with almost all nations in East and Southeast Asia. So the United States South Asia policy calls upon India to increase its investments in Afghanistan and take a more active role as a partner in the regions. The signing of the BICA is a step towards that. United States positions competitive diplomacy with larger use of economic tools like fair and reciprocal trade arrangements and sanctions. The economy is component of United States national power, and China and Russia competitors that have emerged to challenge American power, influence, and interests. The current President Trump, he postponed the G7 summit scheduled in June and plans to invite Australia, India, Russia, and South Korea. Britain proposed G7 plus Australia, India, South Korea, making it 10 nations of democracy, or D10, which is yet another move to oppose China and to break the monopoly of 5G. So why is the Himalayan region even more significant today? Is a geopolitical narrative assumed in the power competition, cooperation, and after the Galwan incident between China and India, confrontation in South Asia and the Himalayan regions. So though the arc of the Himalayas is 2,500 kilometers, like 5 countries bordering distance is more than 5,800 kilometers, and China borders all of them. China and India's rise and influence is leading to geopolitical and geoeconomic stimulus in the South Asian region. So militarizations of the Himalayas can be an example of the two powers' interests being more political with the risks of threat in defending the Himalayan regions. For China, the province of Xinjiang, Tibet, and Yunnan, alongside the Himalayas, is in the same way imperative for stability. So China's peaceful rise, and sometimes referred as peaceful development, is an official principle for countering China's threat theory. So China has become apparent as a political, economic, and a military power, and ensuring to nations in South Asia that its augmentations will not be a menace to peace and stability. So, I mean, like when you look at Nepal, it places itself at the center of the Himalayas. So the 1,414 kilometers is equally imperative, and the likelihood of the coming up of the strategic connectivity with air, land, and train from the Himalayas to the borders of India and the trends of geopolitics will put up with regional linkages, which will uphold security, diplomatic, economic, and political consequences. So though all 6 mountain passes from China to Nepal are vibrant and strategically promising, Kalapani area, which is 416 kilometers to Delhi, located at the northwest end, and easternmost Okhaldunga is 41 kilometers to Siliguri corridor, known as the chicken neck of India. Both these areas are the only districts that border both China and India. So with these, let me say that, I mean, the protocols of transportations and transit agreements between China and India has allowed to use 4 seaports and 3 dry ports in China. So these corridors is hoped to enhance economic activities, but confrontation is evolving between China and India also will bear security ramifications. Over to you.
Thanks, sir, for such an elaborate and insightful reply to the question. And as per your analysis, China is also a main player in the South Asian region nowadays. So our next question is related to that. Like China has crafted a geostrategic approach to the South Asian region that assiduously seeks to secure its own national interest. How do you assess China's strategy of enhancing its influence in South Asian region? Sir.
Okay, now I will begin with the happenings that has taken place in the South Asian regions, and that has China and India at the background. One is 5th August revoking of Article 370 and 35A of the Indian Constitution, forming Ladakh as a different union territory. And second is the militarization in the Himalayan region by both China and India. It started from, it was more visible from Doklam in 2017 and the Nathula Pass that happened in the 2020 and the recent, or let's say the May incident in 2020 that is ongoing. The other point is the Pakistan-China economic corridor be taking place at the Western Himalayas. And the other, on the Eastern Himalayas is the BCIMEC, okay? The geopolitical theory or the construct that is online. And the fifth is Nepal, China has signed Trans-Himalayan Multi-Dimensional Connectivity Network, also referred to as the Trans-Himalayan Network, THN, as part of the Belt and Road Initiative, augmenting its involvement in Nepal mainly through economic engagements and changing Nepal from a landlocked to a land-linked country. So these political occurrences have geopolitical and geoeconomics ramifications and will hold geostrategic hearings. The grand strategic goals, geostrategic plans, and diplomacy campaigns are being executed by great powers rivalry during the pandemic will lay the course for a possible disorder, for a new order in influencing the future global order. So let me quote what the Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said. Quote, "The single most greatest threat to the United Nations comes from the Chinese Communist Party," unquote. So during India and the United States Business Council, Pompeo also said, quote, "The free world must change or China will change the free world," unquote. So reiterating the importance of India. And Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi has been spelling out from time to time that China-United States relations are facing their most serious challenge since the establishment of diplomatic ties. So when we look at India, Prime Minister Modi's diplomatic approach has been the first neighborhood policy, as well as he's trying to bring together the intergovernmental organizations. The SAARC or BIMSTEC is being contended. So India's Act East policy and Look West policy are occupied as vulnerability to China. The strategic rebalancing policy, a non-aligned that India was approaching, is being debated with the multi-alignment. So I talked about the militarization of the Himalayas is striding. So when rising powers, China and India, are approaching to normalize the relationship with informal talks between Modi and Xi, both at Wuhan and Malappuram, the Galwan border skirmishes has added confrontation when cooperation and competitions were on the way. So the traditional security architecture is being questioned. So with this depiction, let me come to the conclusion that South Asia is missing the old normal. South of the Himalayas, with India as the traditional regional player for decades, and has sustained a geopolitical order to bring about stability, now in reservations. China and its policies has been a factor in world politics, and South Asia is altogether important, with two particular instances. One, resource political power, and two, South Asia as a bridge to the Indian Ocean region or the Indian Ocean. So the border dispute in Ladakh region in the Western Himalayas between China and India is a case in point. The 72-day skirmishes in Doklam in 2017 to prevent China from building road up to the Champari Bridge, and 2020 border disagreements in Nathula Pass, Chinese road constructions along Torsa Amochu, aiming for Siliguri corridor. So the conflict in the Galwan Valley is hundreds of kilometers from Pakistan, but strategic interests are much more than territorially dividing lines. So it is more involving resource politics of water, potential land for military viability, and geopolitical discourse with China-Pakistan economic corridors construct. So building up military capabilities in the Western Himalayas by China, India, and Pakistan is being prioritized. So Pakistan moved more than 20,000 additional soldiers. China has stressed out bilateral and multilateral associations with Asian nations, particularly Bangladesh, Myanmar, Nepal, Pakistan, Singapore, Sri Lanka, and Thailand in respects of economy, political, and military cooperation, indicates the strategic shifts for China. So President Xi's visit to Bangladesh in 2016 and Nepal in 2019, turning the relationship to strategic cooperation, also adds to the interests south of the Himalayas. All these countries lie on the Himalayas or along the Indian Ocean. So inclinations to ideology is not concerning to China, though Xi's thoughts and party relationship is being promoted. The viewpoint of working with the day-to-day government, achieving one thing at a time, is the philosophy. So China has been strengthening its economic and military ties with India's neighborhood in South Asia, posing challenge to traditional security architecture. So the argument now is, if China will come as a contributor, while Indo-US strategic cooperation comes up with allies and partnership to isolate China. Over to you.
Thanks, sir, for sharing such an in-depth research on China's influence in the South Asian region. Now let's move to some another important topic of today, that is India-Nepal relations. India and Nepal have been enjoying the bilateral ties since long time. How do you see the current bilateral relation amidst the recent territorial claims made by the Nepal government, followed by the visits of the Director of RAW, Mr. Shamant Kumar Goel, and the Chief of Army Staff, General M.M. Narwade, to Nepal? Sir.
Okay, the border claims by both sides has made the Kalapani region occupied from disputed. Okay, so the region, though is remotely located, has military, tourism, trade, and water resource significance, particularly now when the arc of the Himalayas is being looked upon and influence contested. Let me talk about the current political empirical evidences. The visit by the Raw Chief of India, Samant Goel, and General Narwade, Chief of the Army Staff, Indian Army, which was being debated and covered with priority on most of the broadsheets and national TVs. Varied responses, communications, variations of opinions, and change in psychology. So before I go deeper or analyze about the visit, let me quote what Foreign Minister Jaishankar said in 2016, quote, "Political stability and development in Nepal, along with its prosperity, is linked to India's security," unquote. So the intent of the visit may be a time to materialize this vision of collaboration for a purposeful partnership. So the visit was of great significance as the call, if the call sets the sights for the beginning of other bilateral diplomatic mechanisms. It is out in the news that the Indian Foreign Secretary is visiting Nepal end of November. So the visit of Samant Goel and the Chief of the Army Staff, Indian Army, has several implications. One, political distrust and political maneuvering on the border issues, and diplomacy at its low course is not progressing, though both heads of states were on a telephonic conversation on India's Independence Day. So the diplomatic channels have not been striding as desired. So though the chiefs were will be mandated by the respective democratic governments, Nepal-India security diplomacy is an important part of our relationship. as people-to-people relationship and civilization linkages cannot be questioned, so is security and a military relationship, though other instruments of power do have their own discourse. So the visit signifies, one, the political desire to revisit the cause of distrust. Two, resume traditional practices and expedite other mechanisms. Three, stress that security diplomacy has been the backbone of our relationship. Four, an opportunity for the government and the opposition to bring forward issues that could be brought about for a new course. Five, understanding of India's security concerns in the changing environment. And six, other powers like China's growing political influence, questioning the traditional regional security understanding. So it is a learning of moment of time. So, and I have been terming it as an aged relationship in a new environment. So in Nepali, it is called Purano Sambandhama Naya Ayam. So this is where the security diplomacy and the visit came into Nepal-India relationship and will be credited for resuming the age-old strong bonds that has already been out with the Foreign Secretary of India visiting Nepal this in the end of November, which will definitely bring out political dialogue in forward.
Okay, thanks, sir, for this very elaborate reply. Now let's move to some peripheral strategic issues of common interest. Like we know, the Chinese PLA has been replicating the US military modernization and strategic thinking on the issues like informatized war, cyber, space, electromagnetic war, etc. in the recent past. As per your analysis, what is the current status of PLA's modernization drive vis-a-vis the United States? Sir.
Okay. All right. Yeah, thank you. The Chinese Liberation Army, the PLA, is the largest army in the world in terms of manpower. Though then comes India, and after India is the United States. Well, it is whether it is well equipped. So as of the 2020 global firepower, the United States retains its top spot as the undisputed military power in the world. And the 2020 defense budget was $750 billion US dollars, compared to China's 237 billions on its armed forces in 2020. So this expresses that China is trying to move forward with its Navy capabilities, building up its Navy capabilities. So China has been so actively also involved in South Asia and has replaced India as the major trading partner or military contributions on several South Asian countries through investments, loans, grants. Like $100 billion has been committed by China to Afghanistan, Bangladesh, Maldives, Pakistan, Nepal, and Sri Lanka, as per the American Enterprise Institute's China Global Investment Tracker. So China's total trade with the Maldives exceeded compared to 3.4 times that of China in 2008. China's trade with Bangladesh is now about twice of India. China's trade with Nepal and Sri Lanka still hold up India's trade, but the gaps have reduced. So China's investment is on hard infrastructure, power, roads, railways, bridges, ports, and airports, with 80% investment in energy and transport sector. So China is the leading overseas investor in Maldives, Pakistan, and Sri Lanka. In the financial system, Beijing has obtained share in the Dhaka and Karachi Stock Exchange and foster trade in yuan with Pakistan. So the Chinese interest in the region go beyond economics to active military diplomacy. So Bangladesh and Pakistan receives the biggest share of China's arms export as per Stockholm International Peace Research Institute, SIPRI, arms transfer data from 2008 to 2018 in Asia. Chinese arms sales all through South and Southeast Asia expanded from US 386 million in 2008 to US 1.3 billion in 2016, before declining to US 759 million in 2018. So China is the main arms supplier to Bangladesh and Pakistan, with the United States $1,953 million and United States $6,556 million respectively. So Myanmar receives US 1,259 million and US 2,310 million to the rest of Asia. And the other is the political theory of the string of pearls cannot be ruled out to contain China, to contain India with the military and commercial facilities networks in India's immediate neighborhood. Over to you.
Thanks for sharing, sir, your in-depth research on this topic. Now, one more last question. The bilateral relation between Nepal and China has been very friendly. Please throw some light on current China-Nepal military relations, sir.
Okay, like in the recent past, like some political realm and the perception at large have been influenced and observed things differently now and see Nepal's security relationship with both her immediate neighbors with identical juxtaposition and also extending beyond its neighbors. As I mentioned earlier, and alternative strategic networks. So the agreements focus mainly on 7 categories. Okay, one is strategic communication and connectivity with railways and waterways, energy with hydro projects, power trade, infrastructure development, agriculture, and political and diplomatic gestures and security concerns. So military cooperations with military training, disaster management, medical assistance, equipments for peacemaking operations, establishment of National Defense University are being very visible and prominent in China-Nepal security relationship.
Thank you very much, sir, for such a wonderful dialogue with us. I believe that not only just we, the attendees, but our viewers will also learn a lot from this series video. Thank you once again for participating in our series. Thank you all for watching our episode. We will meet in our next episode soon. Keep watching and keep learning. Bye-bye. Thank you, sir.
And thank you and namaste.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir.